Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I have been a little MIA a little bit just because of, life with a toddler. She's been very clingy lately, and then a lot of snow days and crazy things like that. But now we're in a very trying and different time, just with this virus going around. So I thought this is a great time to start back these math videos. I have been making Math Monday videos, but we're going to change it to Math Madness videos because right now this is just madness, and I'm going to be trying to post more frequently videos just to help my students around this county, around the state, around the country, around the world, if these help. So I just wanted to start back with this, and today we're going to start with converting percents, decimals, and fractions. And so I hope this helps. Feel free to share this with whatever parent, whatever student. I hope these help everybody. Also, if there are different math concepts or even other concepts, I can try to convince some of my partners here at school to maybe stay 6 feet away because of, social distancing, but also maybe, come in and do a little special appearance to help you all with other content like any other grade of math. I can teach 5 through 9 math, so whatever concept that you need help with, just comment in the comments below and I'll try to keep that on my list to make videos of. But I can also get an art teacher, I can get a language arts teacher. I also teach science, or I can teach 5 through 9 science. So if there's any concepts that you all need help with, that's what these videos are for. This is to help whoever needs it, whoever wants it. So I hope this helps. Welcome to anybody that's new watching. I am a mother of a 2-year-old, and I also do live videos every now and then. So maybe have time to finally edit her 2-year birthday party video. But so I hope that you all enjoy this and that it really helps everybody. We are looking at converting percents, and this is my YouTube channel, and I would love if you would hit that red subscribe button on the bottom of this video so that you all can get notifications whenever I do upload a new video to help you on any concept that you all request. Also a little, light-hearted, fun video every now and then. So, and then that's also my Instagram. So students, if you have a question or want to suggest a topic, you can always send me a message on there as well. All right, so I'm going to go through the notes first. So percents are ratios of numbers compared to 100. So percents are ratios. We have looked at ratios before. Don't forget that ratios compare two different quantities. In this case, we're comparing it to 100, so a number compared to 100. We'll use the percent sign to represent percents. And then percents can be written in two equivalent forms, so you can also write them as decimals and as fractions. Percents to decimals, so you can change the percent sign to a decimal and move the decimal 2 places to the left. And I will be showing you examples later on in this video. These are just some notes that I would give my students in class just to let them go back and reflect this. And don't forget, teachers, if you all would like this document, you can email me, and I will put my email in the description box below so that if you want this document, you can send it out through Google, through email to your students so that they can have these as well. So if there is a decimal in the percent, drop the percent sign and move the decimal 2 places to the left. And then percents to fractions, you can drop the percent sign and put the number over 100. And don't forget to simplify. And simplifying is with fractions. You can use the greatest common factor and the LCM. I believe I've done an LCM video. I'll try to find that and link that in the description box below as well. Fractions to decimals, you're going to divide the numerator by the denominator, add a decimal, and zeros as needed. Fractions to percents, you just change the fraction to a decimal, move the decimal 2 places to the right, and change the decimal to a percent sign. Unless there are 3 places behind the decimal, you move the decimal 2 places to the right, keep the decimal, and put a percent sign at the end, so you just keep that decimal right where it's at. Decimals to a percent, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right and put a percent sign. Unless there are 3 places behind the decimal, you move the decimal 2 places to the right, keep the decimal, and put the percent sign behind the end. If you're converting from a decimal to a fraction, you put the decimal over the last place value and simplify. I'll try to make a place value video soon. I'll add that to my list, but for right now, just know that if it's in the 10th place, you put it over a 10. If it's in the 100th place, you put it over 100, and so on. Okay, so let's look at the work mat, and with the work mat, we look at concrete, and we're using manipulatives with these little unit cubes. Then we're gonna look at semi-concrete, and we're gonna draw the models, and then we're gonna look at abstract, and that's with that moving and dividing and just the little different tips, just like we used or mentioned in those notes. So my question for today is, how many of these cubes, what percent of these cubes are pink? Okay, so remember in our notes that we compare numbers to 100. So I'm going to, that a percent is a ratio compared to 100. So we're going to arrange these cubes, and we're going to count to see how many they are, and I'm just going to start with tens because remember we need 100. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. All right, so I'm just going to arrange these. And I'm just going to... Okay, so as you can see that I have arranged these blocks in a 10 by 10 pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm not going to count all of these blocks with you, but a 10 by 10 does have 100. So we are now comparing these by 100. We can use that. So let's see how many out of these blocks are pink, because that was our question. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I have 20, and remember, as a percent, we have to represent it with a percent sign. So we could say that out of these blocks here, 20% of them are pink. Now let's go ahead and turn those into a fraction and a decimal. So since 20 out of 100 is pink, we have 20 out of 100. So that would be our fraction. Now don't forget, we also need to simplify. So that would be 1/5, because for every 20 blocks, there's 5 groups of 20. So one of those 5 groups is pink. Now as a decimal, since there's 20 out of the 100, or 20 hundredths here as this fraction, but us math teachers, that 0 is not necessary, so you can always put just 2/10. All right, so now let's look at this semi-concrete. So that's drawing it out. So I can draw a 10 by 10 roughly. Remember, I'm not the art teacher. All right, so I have 10 columns. Now I'm going to make 10 rows. So now I have 10 rows and 10 columns. So here I have 100 blocks. Now remember over here, 20% of them were pink. So I can just shade 20 of these blocks to represent 20% in this model. So I'm just going to shade the first 2 rows. So that could represent my 20%, my 1/5, or my 20 over 100, and my 20 hundredths or 2/10. Because if you look, each one of these rows is a 10th because there's 10 blocks. So 2 of those 10th blocks are shaded, so that would be 2/10. Now, looking at the abstract and the symbols and all that, so if I started with, I know that 20 out of 100 is pink. To make that a percent, I can change that to a decimal by dividing my numerator by my denominator. I don't have enough numbers to divide 20 by 100, so I can add a decimal and another 0. And then how many times can 100 go into 200? 2 times. 2 times 100 is 200. Subtract, and I get 0. And don't forget, when you're dividing a decimal, you just bring your decimal straight up. So there would be my 2/10. Now, if I want that as a percent, I can move it 2 places to the right and add my percent sign. So then where this little spot here is blank, I can add a 0. So then that would be 20%. So here is our work mat. So now let's look at some examples. Okay, our first example, write 45% as a fraction and as a decimal. So I always tell my student that it is easier to turn that percent to a decimal first and then to a fraction. So just like our notes, we can put a decimal where our percent sign is. Now, if there is already a decimal in our percent, we start where that decimal is. Where we didn't have a decimal, I'm going to make a decimal all the way where that percent sign is. Now, to move that fraction, remember, we're comparing it to 100. So it's like we are dividing this number by 100. So in that case, we're just moving 2 spots. It's always 2, what I like to call bunny hops. I know that's not the mathematical term. I know some teachers don't like that term, but that's just kind of how we do it in the classroom of Miss H. So 2 bunny hops to the left, and then we add our decimal. So this as a decimal, 45% as a decimal is 45 hundredths. Now, remember in our notes when we were changing a percent to a fraction, we turn it to a decimal first, and then we're going to read this decimal, and we're going to put that number over the last place value. So here I have 45 hundredths. So that means I'm going to have 45 in the last place value. We have tenths, and then we have hundredths. So we just put it over 100. But we also have to simplify. Do not forget to simplify. So let's think about what number can go into both 45 and 100. And I just thought of another good video to do. So if you all want me to do a divisibility rules video, because I always tell my students, think of those divisibility rules. So in this case, this one ends in a 5 and this one ends in a 0. So I know that they can both be divisible by 5. So let's just divide both of those by 5 and see what we get. So I already know that 45 divided by 5 is 9. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Well, then I can look at 9 and 20, and neither one of those have a common factor, so I know that that is my final fraction. So 45% as a fraction is 9/20, or 9/20. All right, write 3/4, that's supposed to be as a decimal and percent. So 3/4, I have a fraction. So remember, we like decimals to be able to change to a fraction. Or I could even say let's get 100 in the bottom because percents are ratios compared to 100. So there's a couple of different ways that we can go about this. So 3/4 is one of those really easy fractions that you should already know the decimal for that, because think of money. How many quarters are in a dollar? There's 4. Well, 3 of those 4 quarters would be 75 cents. But remember, you can also divide the numerator by the denominator. 4 can't go into 3, so we can add a decimal and a 0. Well, 4 can go into 30 7 times. 28. Subtracting, you get 2. Add another decimal, because with decimals you don't have remainders, you just keep dividing. So then 4 can go into 20 5 times. So I know that my decimal is 75 hundredths. And then also going back to those proportions that we have looked at before, I can cross multiply here, divide by 4, and you would get 75 up here, which also makes that 75 hundredths. So here is our decimal form. That was one part of our question, but now we also have our percent. So don't forget to answer both parts of your questions. So 75%, remember when we have, well, not percent yet. So when we're changing this decimal to a percent, we start with a decimal and we can move it 2 places to the right. So that's also like multiplying. That's also like multiplying by 100 and getting your percent. So we're just going to bunny hop 2 places to the right. Remember when we went from percent to decimal, we went 2 places to the left. Well, when we're doing decimal to percent, we can move 2 places to the right. Since there's only 2 numbers, we're going to drop that decimal. But where we ended up, we're going to put our percent sign. So as a percent, 3/4 is 75%. Couple of more examples. So then we have write 2/10 as a fraction and as a percent. So let's start with the percent first, because we just have to bunny hop on that one. So don't forget that it is 2 places, since we're doing a decimal, 2 places to the right. So 1, 2. Now we have that empty space there. We looked at this question on our work mat. Since we have an empty spot there, we can add a 0, because that's like multiplying 2/10 by 100. You would get 20, but we move 2 places to the right, add our percent sign. So as a percent, 2/10 is 20%. Now, we want to write that as a fraction. Now, when you read it correctly, and I always tell my students in my class, we don't say 0.2 or decimal 2, we say 2/10, because that 2 is in the 10th place. So as you read that 2/10, that's going to help you make your fraction. Since it is in the 10th place, I'm going to put 2 over 10. But don't forget, we have to simplify. So what number can go into both 2 and 10? Well, they're both divisible by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So as a fraction, 2/10 is 1/5. Okay, word problem. Y'all know I always try to end or have a few examples of word problems. So the state you are visiting for summer vacation has a 5% sales tax on every item that you purchase. Write the percent as a fraction and as a decimal. So let's start with that decimal. Now this one's a little bit different, because when I put that decimal here, and remember I put it where the percent sign is because there's no decimal in my question, I'm going to move it 2 places to the left, or that's also saying dividing by 100. So I go 1, 2. So then I'm going to leave my decimal here, but I also have that empty bunny hop there. So I'm going to add a 0. So that sales tax as a decimal is 5/10. And you're like, why, Miss Hammonds, why would I need to know what 5% is as a decimal? Well, when you were without a calculator, if that would ever happen and your phone was dead and you didn't have anything around, you could multiply this 5/10 times the price of your item, and you would know how much you need to add to be able to buy the item that you're wanting. So if you knew it was $1, then you would have to pay $1.05. So if your parent only gave you $1, then you wouldn't have enough to buy that item. So, but now let's make that so we did the decimal. Now we need to do the fraction. So remember, I have my decimal here. So let's read that decimal the correct way. So it would be 5/100ths, because this is the 10th place, this is the 100th place. So we're going to put that 5 over 100. Well, we know it's not simplified because both of these numbers are divisible by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So then the fraction form of 5% is 1/20th. I hope this video helped you all some, and I hope this helps you with some of your NTI work in Kentucky, where we're doing, or my district at least is doing, NTI days, which stands for non-traditional instruction days. And so my students are having to do questions at home that I'm putting on the internet, where they were also able to get a paper copy. So I want to make these videos to help them and to help all the other students around my state and the country. So teachers are here to help those students anywhere where we have a serving heart, or I have a serving heart. So God bless me with that heart. So if you all need help with any other topic, please leave that in the description box below. You can also message me on Instagram, or on my Instagram, or you could also email the email that I have linked below. So I hope that you all enjoyed this. I hope this helped you all. If you all have any more questions about converting decimals, percents, or fractions, just holler at me. Leave me a little comment in the comment section below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and also subscribe to my channel down on the bottom by hitting that red subscribe button. So I can't wait to see y'all again, probably in a couple of days, but bye y'all.